All right. So this week is basically going to be Ford Mustang at Nürburgring. Now, the reason there's no vote or anything is basically just because I ran completely out of time with regards to everything I was doing. Um, I can I continue trying to work on the peak stuff basically after Tuesday to try and figure out what we were missing. Um, and that really has taken up pretty much all of my time. So I figured what we would do for this week is we would do a car that I'm relatively experienced in. I used to race this car a lot, and it's quite a fun car actually. It's quite natural to drive, I would say, and because of that, I think it makes kind of like a nice relaxed stream. So really, that's what we're going for this week, and so I guess we'll get going. The first thing I did, and the reason why we're like a couple of minutes delayed, is really I looked at air pressures in a bit more detail than otherwise was going to basically be able to. And the baseline starts with like 32 psi all around. Now, what I remembered is that pretty much this car likes really as low as you can go, and I just wanted to confirm that, and I thought it would be a good test just on the basis of it's a car that I know well, and I'll be able to kind of get there pretty quickly. Um, the downside is with it being near GP, it's like over a 2 minute lap. It's like a 2 minute 18 lap. So if I was gonna do it on stream, it was gonna take up a ton of time, and I figured I might as well do it off stream because then I can get the results and I can show them, and then we can go from there really quickly. Um, so I started off. I actually did this in reverse. I did the 25 psi runs first, and then the 28.5, and then the 32. And the reason I did that was because the past couple of weeks I've been thinking that perhaps some of the gains mainly come from me driving the car. Um, and I just kind of wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case for something like this. Now, the gap's actually way bigger than I expected, but I think it's because even though it only shows up as 5 laps, you've got to remember that this is actually quite a long time. Like that's like 2 times 5 is 10 minutes, and so like you see where we're going here. That like we're at, like over an 11 minute kind of period. It's pretty clear, really, that the minimum air pressures is definitely the way to go. Now, interestingly enough, my first lap on 28.5s was actually faster, which I really wasn't expecting. I am unsure as to whether to put that down to maybe I didn't get everything out of the 25 psi car, or that perhaps there is maybe 26 pounds is perhaps what you want to run for qualifying air pressures, and that there might be a little bit of performance there. That said, I feel like if you ran 25 psi, the ability to run 2 laps at almost the same speed, or at least this lap two that's very quick, is not necessarily a bad thing. So you might want to consider that. In short, there's really no reason to deviate from minimum air pressures in this car. You're just going to go slow. So that's kind of a major thing right from the off that's sort of sorted. The next thing is just the usual kind of thing that you're gonna want like for fuel and that. And this car has kind of course adjustments in terms of what you can do for fuel. So you end up with a number that's 19.4 liters based on the 25 minutes, and that you're gonna do 11 laps. That's the other reason I wanted to do at least 5 laps, 5 lap runs with the air pressures, because that basically takes you to halfway in the race. And really 19.4 has pretty much been standard for as long as I remember in this for the 25-minute races. Sometimes you have to go up an extra click, sometimes you can get away with running it really close. It's not really worth it, but 19.4 is not a bad place to start. Or 5.1 gallons, depending on how you want to look. But yeah, we can see clearly that air pressure was a huge deal, and immediately there's some free time. There's some free time, and the other thing that's nice about this car is that because it's so simple, and it's really not affected by aero or anything like that, not to the same extent that other cars are. They're pretty much the setup is the same everywhere. So once you get a good base that you like, you from past experience, the only things that you end up really changing is brake bias and anti-roll bars, and occasionally rear heights. Everything else, once you've got it set, yeah, you got it set forever. So we will go now over to the garage and take a look at what we have. I'll wheel off as well so I can see a bit more clearly. So you can see that realistically it's a pretty simple car. You have the air pressure adjustments, which we're going to put 25s. You got air pressure, you got perch, you've got a couple of shock settings, which because I've done the air pressure stuff off stream, I will probably mess around with those a little bit. We probably will restrict it to about 3-lap runs, depending on how good, bad driving is. Really. You also have caster adjustments. You got a little bit of camber adjustment. Baseline comes with 2.5. You can go out to 2.8. So that's probably one of the first things we're gonna do. Just to kind of get that out of the way. We'll probably do the usual of the maxing of the caster and the maxing of the camber. And then really beyond that, you have brake bias, you got front toe, and you have a couple of ARB adjustments at either end of the car. So the first thing we will do, actually, just a quick note on the brake bias. The range of adjustment is pretty large. You can go from 85 down to, I think if I remember correctly, it's 69. It starts at 75. Now, I think that you can definitely get away with running it like all the way at 69. And this is basically how I used to race the car. I used to run it with the bias as far back as I could stand, which was basically minimum. And the reason for that is that this car is really about how much speed you can keep rolling through the middle of the corner without losing drive off. And all of your lap time really comes from that. So basically having the bias further rearwards is just going to get you rotating a little better, like as you come up to the apex. So if you can manage running it with at 69%, I would definitely do so. So we're gonna try that. We're gonna do 69% of bias. It's the one car where I'll say that the bias is more than just a preference. Do our usual of max camber and the max caster. You'll notice we lost a little bit of camber there, so this is kind of a combined adjustment. Let's see what we can get. So you can either have a choice of max caster or max static camber. We're gonna try basically max caster first. In this kind of car, and with the kind of restricted adjustment you got between 2.4 and 3, I feel like the maximum caster is going to be the way to go. But we'll experiment because we got a bunch of time. So let's try that out. So this will be kind of a short video, which I'm hoping everybody is okay with. Try not to kill my monitors. This is a really nice car to drive, actually. It's a really kind of natural handling sort of car on this. It's probably one of my favorite road cars. The other thing is that it's quite a It's quite a torquey car, so you really don't need to be like hammering through the gears. And this is actually another car that's a bit like the Spec Racer Ford, where there's you kind of want to shift up a little bit early. You kind of want to shift at about 6,000. For the sake of keeping everything the same, we're just going to shift basically on the JRT shift light, which I think is at 6,400. So that's a little high. Usually it's the yellow light on the dash is where you'd want to shift. That chicane is probably the hardest part on the track, really, to get right. Well, that's chicane in the first corner, really. The first corner is really just about kind of getting it rotated. Now, one side effect of the of both the caster and the brake bias is that you start getting a lot more rotation kind of right on entry. Some people do not like. I know if Stefan ever watches this, he'll definitely have that opinion. But the other thing I really kind of like to stress about this car is that there's once you kind of get the air pressures and like the ride heights correct, there's not a lot of time and setup beyond that. It's all kind of driver, which makes it a really good car actually, because it means that you know that in a lot of the racing you're doing, it's coming down purely to who's better at driving the car, which is really cool. It makes the racing in it very fun, because you know it's very even. Especially with the guys who've been racing the car for a very long time. Might have to reevaluate the fuel usage in terms of how many laps might be ran in the race. Because I was getting a number that was about 10.8, so I kind of pushed that out to 11 or 12. But that was when I was sort of working off a 2:19 lap time. So now I'm working off what looks more like a 2:17. And it'll probably push it more towards a 12 lap race than an 11. Especially in cold weather. might kind of flip the max static camber and caster the opposite way around after this run just to see. I feel like ultimately it shouldn't make too much difference, but it might be a little bit of a preference type deal. We are going to probably work off about a 3-lap average just to kind of keep the run lengths under 10 minutes. Which, I mean, now that kind of the air pressure's decided is to be honest, is okay. Really, long running is good for sort of determining the difference between high camber builds and different air pressures. Everything else can kind of be figured out with really short runs. A little bit clumsy. This is a really nice car to drive. It's a little bit of a shame that perhaps it's not as popular as it once was, but if you just want something that's actually pretty fun to drive and drives quite naturally, this is a good car.
Minute 16.7.
Alright, that was 3. I will take a look. Other screen up. There you go. And then if I just delete the past 2 times in that, we'll see where. A little bit faster, but not a lot. Now I'm gonna do probably min caster. And I just want to see what the difference is really. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to see really kind of what's more important, whether it's the static camber that matters more, or whether it's the gain you're gonna get in caster. So you can see that it changes the actually. Am I on the right thing? Yeah, I was, but you can see how like if we max the caster on the left side and leave it minimum on the right, you can see how it changes the max static camber. So I can't increase that anymore. Like if you look, like I'm at 2.5 on that, but I'm at 3.1 on that. We'll just try that real quick. The higher caster can actually help a little bit in slide recovery. And the lower you go in caster, the kind of the lighter the wheel will feel. If you keep the force feedback the same as. This is a very old car in a iRacing context, but it's because of that. It means it doesn't get changed very often, and that a lot of things will sort of stay true for a very long time, which is nice, really. Actually, because a lot of the other cars change a lot. Also, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. And I will try and answer them as best I can. So the real reason that I'm actually like testing this is basically because the static camber number is so low. Like like you basically have a choice of 2.5 or 3.1, and if it was, say, if I could run that out to, if I could run that all the way out to like 6, then the thing I would basically gravitate towards is maxing the caster out and then just adjusting the static camber number from there, starting at around about 4. So pretty similar to kind of how we did with the Ferrari, where it's sort of the caster number was a bit determined by by what we could get with static camber.
2 minutes 16.27.
It's a case of really trying to figure out which one's more powerful in terms of lap time, and then go in around that one. I say really you'd want to shift up on the yellow shift light, which I'm not sure you can see because I think JRT Dash might be covering it. But that's the point where I'd really normally be shifting up. Just I forgot to change JRT.
Minute 16.44.
I think these are going to come out as roughly being around the same, so it really might come down to a preference. As it stands, I prefer the higher caster, but you may feel differently. That is perfectly okay. So I think we're okay on fuel anyway. Like we're set for being able to do at least 12 laps. But please, if you do race it, check yourself first. I don't want to be responsible for people running out of fuel. I'm somewhat hoping that this really is like almost identical to the last one, just so that I can actually truly say that it's a preference adjustment. That'd be nice.
Minute 16.65.
Let's see. I feel like it is, though. It looks like it is. I think aside from my first lap being a bit off, the second two were really similar. Yeah. I'm going to say that they're definitely close enough to consider it preference. So that's cool. So my my preference on it is basically to max the caster out. But you can at least treat that as a as something for handling. And really what you'll get with that is that the more caster you have, you're gonna have more rotation, sort of up to the entry of the corner. The less caster you have, you're gonna have more rotation kind of on any kind of in any sort of scenario where you have an encounter the slides. So just keep that in mind. If you're unsure, just put it to the midpoint. You'll hopefully get kind of a decent balance of the two things. Alright, so the next things that we kind of have to play with, we've got, I feel like there's a bunch of ride height that we can play with, so let's take a look. How low can we go? Okay, we can go to 88. Let's try and get the crossweight close as well. I know it's kind of trying to get the ARB preload down to 0 too. Seems to be a lot of adjustment available here. Do not really much. That will do. Well, let's get them both to 3.5. 3.6, like 4.9 newton meters is like nothing. So interesting, you can't change anything preload wise at the rear. Although I'm not exactly sure how you would preload the bar in the back of this car anyway. So we'll leave that at that for now. And how low are we allowed to go in the rear? So we're going to kind of try what we did with the Spec Racer. Where, because we're not really reliant on any aero, so yeah, okay, the car does have a wing, but just disconnect that for a minute. Go with that for crossweight. We'll put the bar back to soft, and then we'll reset preload, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so we're gonna try basically dropping the thing to the minimum heights first to just see if we can pick up a little bit more overall kind of grip by just dropping the weight lower essentially. So we'll try that, and then what we'll probably end up doing is just lift the rear up a little bit and see if there's any performance there, and then if there's not, we'll go back down. I distinctly remember running this car at minimum ride heights when I raced it, so it won't surprise me if that's still the case. For a second then, I nearly forgot that I hadn't switched back to iRacing. You gain caster and camper with those ride height changes. Yeah, that you. I actually wasn't looking at that, but yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if we gained a little bit. We'll have gained. We'll have gained camber because we just dropped like the whole front down a bit, and we'll have gained caster because we changed like the rake in the car, I would guess. And hey, Jason, what's going on? Also, do you guys want to play some Red Dead after this? Okay. Just let me know. The bolt action rifle. You actually missed what happened after you left with me and Travis. We got ambushed by, well, I went into a town and I came across some guy who decided he was going to try and shoot me, and basically he failed in that and I killed him, and then we ended up in like this massive like hour-long brawl with these two guys, and it was pretty fun. As I'm sure Travis will agree, we definitely killed them way more times than they killed us. I think he did at one point. There was one point where it did get a little bit hand to hand, and like we were having a bit, like I was having a bit of like a grapple match for somebody, and Travis had to come in and shoot them whilst they were trying to grapple me. It was pretty funny.
Two minutes 15.86.
So why does lower ride height work? Well, basically, when you drop the ride height down, you just get all the mass closer to the ground, and what that means is that you get more even loading of the tires, and that lets you get like a little bit more max grip capability out of it. But if you're starting from scratch, you want to build a car with the weight completely on the floor if you can, or as best you can. Because it's just pure performance to do so. Not considering downforce, that is.
Minute 16.37.
It's a bit of a clumsy shift.
Minute 16.38.
Okay. So it was a little bit faster again. And I think I am going to shortcut this a little bit on the basis that when I've raced this thing before, the fastest way I've always found is with minimum heights all around. So if you want to mess around with rear heights, then that is up to you. That is fine. There might be something there that I'm missing, but from what I remember and from what I feel, that minimum heights is all the way really. And you do already have like a ½ inch of rake in the car, even with minimum heights. So keep that in mind. Add up the times. Alright, so yeah, a little bit. I guess quarter, tenth average. I think I drove it a little better, so I think that's a bit of a factor in it too, but in general, it's better. Actually, I'm just gonna recalculate fuel usage real quick. The usage is 1.548. Okay, so 556. So it was still the 1.556 usage is fine. It's just the time I want to check. Because I feel like the average is not a 139 lap, it's a 130. Let's try it with a 136. Okay, that says that we'll basically do 12 laps, and that there's no way we'll ever do more than 12, so 19.4 should definitely be okay in terms of fuel. Now, what we're kind of left with on the car is anti-roll bars, tow, and shocks. So we have an option of non-soft and firm for ARBs. And we have non-soft, medium, and firm in the front. So what we will try... And we also have some tow. Currently at 1 millimeter. So we can go between 10 and 30 on shock setting for bump, it seems. Rear, I assume we've got the same adjustment. Yep. Assume we can go negative 180 to plus 180. Okay. Get to that at the very end. I think what I will try is I will try running firm bars both ends of the car. Now the reason I went straight to firm on both was just because I'm assuming a little bit that the balance is still going to stay the same. But if necessary, we can go down to medium on the front bar and go from there. Did I switch back? Yes, I did. So we're okay. Stalled it. So why am I trying to get the firm bars? Basically just try and get a little bit more response out of the car. And to kind of tie it together a bit better. I'm hoping is going to make it a little better through like these little kind of transitions. My concern really is losing some rear grip and then losing drive off and kind of later on in a run. You said you were taking a break today. I am after this. I wanted to kind of keep up the thing of doing a stream every Thursday at 10 as for setups and so on. Which is kind of a bit why we're doing this car, because it's a bit more relaxed and it's probably going to result in a bit of a shorter stream. So that's why we're doing that today. And then afterwards I'm gonna go and play Red Dead. So it actually feels, if anything, I'm actually losing out a little bit in traction zone. Not sure why I tried to turn in that early for there, but it doesn't seem to hurt us too much. Okay, so a little slow on the hot lap. It feels a little bit more more disconnected actually, especially in the rear. The front feels pretty nice because it feels really tied together, but the rear feels like it's now sliding across the track some. Like that. One thing that's always surprised me about this car actually is kind of how much authority the rear anti-roll bar seems to have. It seems to be a far bigger influence than I would like expect, given that it's just a just an old schooly live axle in the rear.
minute 16.41.
Hydrate butt. It just feels like the rears just sort of slides across the track like that a little. I feel like I'm very close to getting a slowdown on that blue curb on the right. Somehow managed to carry a ton more speed through that first left-hander than I expected. A big curb bounce. Is that going to help?
Minute 16.85.
Okay, I'm pretty certain that that was slower. But I feel like the reason it was slower is all just because of rear slides. So probably it's better to go with the soft bar. I'm not gonna try disconnected. But if people feel like they need more traction, that would definitely be something that you could mess with. Going a disconnected bar in the back. I wouldn't disconnect the front bar. And the reason I wouldn't do that is because the front bar is really what's holding just like the entire front of the car up. So if you disconnect it, it's gonna just basically turn into just a rolling mess. But hey, I mean, it's only like 2 clicks, and it's only a couple of laps, so could be worth doing. Just give me one moment here. Okay. So we come back to soft bars. We'll try. Can I change that? Okay, that's interesting. Toe has really weird adjustment. I was gonna actually try and level it out and go to 0 to get a bit less drag on straights. So I guess I kind of busted on that because that's all I can get out of that. Which really means we're down and messing with sharks. Now I'm gonna try going up on the front bump. And if you can hear my dog in the background, that is because there is somebody outside. And he gets excited by absolutely everything. Actually, did I add those times in? Yes, I did. So why did I add the front bump? Really, I'm just kind of trying to get a bit more initial bite. But we really are into kind of the realms of fine tuning at this point. Like we've got like 98% of the raw speed out of the car, I'm pretty sure. Also with the Mustang, basically every lap is like you just get degrading performance. So that's why the times always drop off. And that I'm pretty sure is just because it's like on a street tire. This change actually seems to have kind of got the result that I was sort of wanting from the ARBs, in that it just feels like it's tied up the front of the car a bit better. So it actually feels really nice. There appears to be actually more speed here than I thought.
Minutes 15.63.
Kind of my bad there, really. Surprised that was an off track.
2 minutes 16.1.
Felt like I only dipped like one wheel off. And yet that isn't an off track, how weird. is a bit scruffy.
2 minutes 16.37.
But overall, it just feels like it's kind of got a bit more response at the front, and it just feels a bit more solid, which is nice. So we'll save that. So yeah, a little bit faster. That's nice. Yes, on the rebound. I'm tempted to try. Let's try going up. Let's try. Like, I always make big swings on shocks just because a lot of times the effects are really subtle. So I find that if you make a big swing on them, then that gets you that probably doesn't get you exactly what you want, but it gets you an idea of what is going to happen when you make that change, and then which kind of point you want to start from. If that makes sense. Like whether you want to start from like the soft end of the spectrum or like the hard end and go from there kind of thing. So we'll try this. It wouldn't surprise me if, like a lot of the slow cars on iRacing, it benefits from having basically everything kind of wound up. And I'm not really sure why that is, but a lot of stuff does seem that way. It's only really on the faster stuff where that to an extent sometimes goes away a bit. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. And then once we kind of got an idea of where we want to be, because I definitely think the 30 on the bump in the front is the place to be. Once we've got an idea of the rebound, which end we kind of want to be at, we'll then make some tweaks on rear bump and rear rebound. I actually find rear rebound actually does make a good deal of difference. Like if you're loose going into corners, rear rebound changes do seem to help a bunch. Now, I can't actually remember which way around helps. I want to say having more rebound makes it tighter, but we'll just have to find out and run the test. Because I just can't remember off the top of my head. Usually I kind of find that the front like I kind of always mess around with the shocks sort of in terms of how they'll affect like the front end of the car. And I tend to find that the effects, which kind of makes sense a little bit, is that the effects at either end of the car are sort of opposed. So going up on rear rebound gives a bit of a similar effect to going up on front bump, because it's doing like front bump is trying to stop the nose drop down, and rear rebound is trying to stop the rear popping up. But when the rear pops up, that also kind of tries to force the front down. So I think that's why they feel like they give very similar effects. Now this feels like it's actually giving up a little bit of front grip. But we'll see. We'll be able to see more with just the lap times really. Definitely feels harsher over curbs. And in general, it just feels like the front's kind of... like the ride has got worse. This lap's a bit distorted by a little bit of a mistake I made near the beginning, but... overall, I'm not a big fan of the feel we've got going on here. Like it actually feels like the front tires are just kind of overloaded now. Like they just don't want to bite into the track.
Minute 16.23.
Lap 2 might be better than the first, which would be kind of intriguing. But I think that's more about how I kind of screwed up with the first one than anything setup-wise. But in general, I'm not a fan of this change. I think I'm making it look worse than it is, but it just feels like it's made the front really non-compliant.
minute 16.38.
Was it supposed to happen? It'll be a very average lap. Okay.
Minute 16.86.
Now, I definitely don't think that was as slow as I made it out to be, but I didn't like the direction it went. It just felt like the entire front end was locked completely solid, but in a way where, like, as soon as you'd have any kind of slide with the nose, that then you would just basically die. Like, that you would instantaneously lose all the grip. Yeah, like, it wasn't that slow. But definitely I didn't like it personally. So we will try. We're gonna try the opposite now. If that doesn't work, then we'll just literally just put it in the middle. That's not what I want. I have a little bit of a drink. Have I got it on the right thing? Yes, I have. Sweet. So hopefully this will have the opposite effect, where the nose will feel more compliant now, and it won't feel like it's constantly being overloaded. Now we have ended up at this kind of sort of shock arrangement in a few other cars. And it does seem a really sort of crude way of getting there, but to be honest, it is effective. Like, to get to the end of the range that you feel like you should be working at and then make small adjustments from there. Like, it's pretty much how I home in on where I want to be. I'll go from one end to the other on the shock, and then I'll do a like a half as big a change kind of thing. So like, say if it's a 32 click shock, I'll go from 0 to 32, or well, I'll actually start at in the middle at 16, and then I'll go to the end of 0, and then I'll go to 32, and whichever end's faster, either 0 or 32, then I'll go half again. So if it's the 32 end, we'll go to 24, and then if 24 is faster, then what we'll do is we'll go to 28 and so on. It's just that takes quite a long time, and it's sort of really beyond the scope of the video. At least that's kind of how you go about it if you don't want to start looking into telemetry. It does work, you do get to where you need to be, but it just takes you a long time. That's all. So like here, if this doesn't work, then I'm gonna go back to basically dead in the middle of the shock. And if I had more time, then I would then go half in between at both ends of the range again. But given that I don't have that much time, I'm just gonna, if this doesn't work, I'll go back to the middle, and then I want to mess around with rear rebound and bump.
Minute 15.69.
I definitely feel like the softer end of the spectrum is where we need to be for this. Bit of an unnecessary saw on the wheel there. But yeah, while this is a bit of a crude way of sort of homing in on where you want to be, it does work. It just takes time.
Minute 16.1.
Could have been better. I feel like that was actually really very similar to
2 minute 16.39.
to the times I was running with it basically in the middle. So that kind of gives me an idea that perhaps the best point is kind of not at the very soft end, not at the middle, but like in the middle of that. If that makes sense. Because if we look, see we have that group on 40, 41, and 42, and then we have the group on 48, 49, and 50, and they're really similar, like extremely so. Yeah, it's like within a tenth at that point. So if the max was so much slower, and the min and the midpoint are basically the same, then that's kind of where I'm like, aha, the best point must be in the middle of those two. Like almost as though like it's sort of a like a like kind of like a U-shaped sort of curve where like going at the very top end makes you slower, but then you've got these 2 points that are kind of here. So like if that's like the middle and that's like the softest, then if they're both the same, but then there's a third point, say here, that's slower, then the curve's probably like that, and the best point is probably in this bit between the two that are the same. At least that's kind of my reasoning on it. But I really want to mess with the rear end stuff, so I'm gonna put the front back to its midpoint, and save it, and then I want to mess with rear rebound, and I'm a little bit conscious of time. So bump stiffness on the rear, we've got 20, and it can go to 30, I believe. Okay. Now, kind of thinking a little bit like like I was before, in the sense of almost as though these things are reversed compared with each other. So, if high bump in the front was good, then perhaps high rebound in the rear is good, because it'll help even more to do that. So the first thing we're going to try is we're going to try 180 in the rear rebound. And then after that, if that's no better, then I'm just going to revert back and we'll just leave it in the middle. If it is better, ace, we'll keep that. And then what we'll do is we'll make a tweak to bump stiffness, because I want to see what 10 bump is like, because I feel like the lower we are on bump, the better the drive off is going to be, which might allow us to be a little bit more aggressive just with kind of turning and that kind of thing. So we're going to try plus 180 on the rear rebound, and then if that's worse, then we'll just revert back to the middle. If it's better, ace, we'll save it, and then we'll go and we'll just do one last run on rear bump, just trying to see if it's better at the low end or the high end kind of thing. And then we'll probably wrap up, because I feel like we've spent quite a long time on not so much, and we're now really sort of dabbling in the really sort of fine details. Like all the main speed actually came from well, I guess I suppose you could say it came from the air pressures, okay, that's been a bit distorted, but like if I delete those, then there you can see it a bit more clearly. So the vast majority of the time came from the air pressures, and then we gained a bit more time when we went down on the ride heights, and again a little bit more with those slight tweaks we did to casters and stuff. The ARBs were bad, so we went back on that and got rid of that, and then we gained a bit more when we went the bump to 30, and then kind of sort of stalled out a little bit, which is okay. You can see that like our average started off as an 1855, and our best so far average is a 16.0. 16.0 average, I guess, is pretty good. But that's not what I meant to do. There we go. But the vast majority of our time has come from really come from the air pressures. Which is okay. Because like that's actually kind of good, because that means that's one of those things where it really now is a set and forget, where you just know from this point forwards that's what you always run, and then away you go. Also, did I switch the scene back? Let's check. I did. Okay, didn't expect to slide on the outlap like that. Just on the outlap, it kind of feels like it's tightened the car up some. Like I lost a little bit of rotation. Initial impressions are not so good. Car really seems to not like rebound. This is interesting.
Two minutes 15.93. Two minutes 16.2.
Yeah, the car really doesn't seem to like rear rebound. Well, not even just rear rebound, just rebound as a whole, which is interesting. not really sure what kind of answer to give to that, to be honest with you. I'm quite surprised. I figured that if it didn't like it at one end of the car, then it might be the opposite was true at the other end, but it just really doesn't seem to like rear rebound. Oh, no. I keep saying rear. But you know what I mean, just rebound in general. Seems to not be a fan. Which brings the question as to whether my last idea of going low on the bump will actually work, because the idea there was that I would get more drive off, but maybe it would actually be better at the other end. I mean, there's 10 clicks either way, so. Off track. Just feels like I have to be kind of nicer on the throttle.
2 minutes 16.44.
I actually think that was probably a faster lap 3 than the other ones, but in general, I'm not a big fan of that. It just feels like it's easier to spin the tires up. Oh, okay, it wasn't fast. That was RR rebound. Why does that say 15.93? Randomly decided that it wants to be one decimal place less. Yeah, so lost a little bit of speed there. So yeah, I guess it just doesn't like rebound, which is intriguing. It's a cool Excel. Google Sheets, man. The bomb. And yeah, actually, this sheet, I get asked a lot about whether there's a copy of this available, and really, I'm just gonna create a base one that people can copy, because if you look, I can have all 30. It's basically meant for cup stuff, so it's set up for 30 lap runs. It's a bit of a pain to add more than 30, but you can just hide cells and so on. But if you want to do less, when you make it, send it your way. I'm gonna have to find a way to distribute it out in a way that's convenient for people. But I get asked about it a lot, so I do need to find a way, and I will find a way of doing it. Right, so we'll go back to 0 and 0. And then the last thing we are going to try is we're going to try going down to 10 on the bumps to get a bit more drive off. And if that doesn't work, then we will go back to 20, we will save it, and we will ship it. Basically. And actually, that's gonna wrap it up at a good time anyway. It'll make it just over 2 hours. So that's cool. That's kind of the target that I want to be at. The setup and everything will be available on the forum, along with the a VOD when it's uploaded to YouTube and everything. I know a lot. I actually think I get more viewership of the YouTube videos, presumably because people can skip through them, which is totally fine. But I do the streams in case anybody wants to kind of hang out and ask any direct questions and stuff like that when they can definitely get hold of me. I'm not the easiest person to get hold of. I mean, I am, but I'm not at the same time. Like, I get bombarded with that much stuff that sometimes it's easy for stuff to get missed. Yeah, Discord is actually a very good way of getting hold of me now. And that's why I set up the kind of the archive Discord too. So that everything as long as I put everything there, then everybody knows that's where everything is, kind of thing. And that might actually be a good place to put the spreadsheet, like the template for it. If I just provide edit access for the spreadsheet, what I'm hoping people will be able to do is they'll just be able to copy the whole thing and then paste it into a new one. And as long as they paste all the formatting and everything, it should just work. I'm not really sure how to make duplicates or copies of files in like a Google Sheets sort of way without them just all appearing in like my own folder, which is obviously not helpful to other people because you still won't have access to that. And for various reasons, I cannot give you all access to my Google Drive, because then you would have access to other information and certain setups that you, well, not that I necessarily want to keep secret, but because they're not my own, like, not entirely my own work, they're not really mine to share. And to be honest, that's pretty much how I view any kind of setup deal. That if it's all my own work, then it's mine to share. If it has anything to do with anybody else, then I will not share. Sharing is caring. Well, at the moment we are 3/10 down, so that is not looking so hot.
Minute 16.1.
Guess we'll see if that was just a kind of a crappy lap on the second one. of doesn't. I don't know. This hasn't really had the effect that I was wanting, so. It's funny is that for this video, we're gonna have done like almost
2 minutes 16.0.
almost 5 times the race distance, which is kind of crazy. $16.0 on lap 2 is actually not too bad. That was ruined by a really poor last score, chicane, really.
2 minutes 16.71.
Although, to be honest, I don't think it was. I don't know. I don't think it was any worse or any better. But I will look at the times. Yeah, so 16.1, 16.0. So I guess that was just really bad on my first lap. 16.0 on lap 2 was good. It's just, it felt like it got harder to drive. Like it got more unpredictable, I would say. So I feel like that where we had before with the max bump in the front and then the rebounds at 0. And then it might even be the case that max bump in the rear is better. But I will leave that for somebody else to mess with. for the times. So yeah, it's a little bit but you can kind of see that realistically all the all the shock changes are not that critical in terms of lap times. Like I mean, if you look at the averages, the worst was when we put the rebound at 180. You can see that kind of well, I suppose if we exclude that 180 rebound, then really the average is kind of within a 2 to 3/10 difference, which is much less than say the difference between air pressures, where the air pressure average was significantly different. Like it was like over half a second just in a couple of pounds, and then actually like pretty much. I mean that's like 2 seconds, which is kind of insane. But yeah, I think basically the last thing I would probably suggest to try on the shocks would definitely be, I don't know, just try and see if the bumps work better at 30. And kind of go from there. And I just realized you couldn't see the times that I was looking at. Here you go. There you go. So that's you can kind of see where we came from. And the biggest change was definitely air pressures. And this is kind of why I talk about them a bunch. And that's why I was glad to kind of start having already done those, so I could really show them clearly as to basically the difference that makes. Especially on this car for some reason. I feel like it's because the minimums are so relatively high compared with other cars on iRacing that's why there's a much bigger influence, and why like 32 pound baseline, even though it seems reasonable, like on an actual road car, is it just won't fly in here right now, basically. I didn't mean to do that. So I could leave those in there, but I sort of feel like the point's been proven even with 3 laps, so we're gonna elect to hide them. And people watching the video back will be able to see it anyway. I will say okay, yep. So that is all saved, and I've had 2 people who have seemingly been here like the whole time, and I really appreciate that you guys have been there. I know not many people have really said that much, but that's cool. That's fine. I appreciate the interest in this car is not that high. That's okay too. But I kind of wanted something that I knew pretty well and was going to be able to do a good job of. And next week we'll go back to something that's going to have probably a lot more interest. We'll probably actually do the truck next week. I'm not sure on what track we'll do the truck, but it'll probably be a decent sized oval, so I imagine there'll be people more interested in that. But that's fine. My kind of goal is to sort of go through basically every car at some point, so I understand that there's going to be more or less interest depending on what the car is. So that's all good, and appreciate people kind of supporting the stream and watching watching the videos back on YouTube and everything, and I hope it's helping people. So I will catch you all another time.